Thoughts become things. Thoughts become things, so we have to be mindful of our thoughts.
The noise.
Thoughts come from our higher self or our ego. The ego is here for a reason. It's here for our protection. It's here to protect us. The ego is that voice that says, the last time you put your finger in that flame, you got burned. Don't put your finger in that flame again. The ego is that voice that says, wait, don't do that. You don't want to hurt yourself. The ego is trying to protect us, but a lot of times because we don't have a connection to our higher self, or we don't rely on our intuition as much as we should, because we haven't been trained to do that, then we tend to let the ego thoughts take over. The ego thoughts become our dominant thoughts. The ego thoughts that are meant to protect us self-sabotage us. Okay? The ego is what I would say that Christians call the devil, right? The ego. And the ego sometimes is too protective, so it starts to tell us things that are not true. The ego tells us that don't do this, because if you do this, it's not going to work, because this person's going to stop you. The ego tells us that you're not going to be able to make it if you try to do that, because you need this many degrees to be able to make this amount of money. Even though the people with that many degrees are in the same job as me, in the same position as me, doing the same thing that I'm doing, earning the same or less than what I'm earning, the ego would tell me, you're never going to be able to get a good job unless you have a master's degree, unless you have this, unless you have that. That's the ego. So we have to be careful of what we allow to take control, or the thoughts that we allow to actually enter our consciousness. We know, and these are just some examples that have come up over the last few days, which made me start to investigate and examine myself and look at myself and try to figure out, okay, this is something that I need to address, and then I need to heal within myself, because these ego thoughts become too much, right? And we're giving them too much energy. And when we give those ego thoughts that much energy, then those ego thoughts start to plant these seeds, and then these seeds start to grow. And then what happened? We just self-sabotage ourselves based on our ego, based on our fears, based on the things that were meant to protect us, but they're not protecting us no more. When we start to give so much energy and so much attention to those things, to those thoughts, to that voice, then we get in trouble. They said the devil's a lie, y'all, right? The ego is a lie. It's a lie. It lies to you for your protection. But see, that's why it's so important to have a connection with your highest self, to have a connection with God, to have a connection with your ancestors, the guardian angels, and your higher self, really. It's what it is. Your intuition, to know, to be able to trust that intuition, to be able to know, like, nah, this is just the ego, to be able to tell your ego to shut the fuck up when you need to tell your ego to shut the fuck up, or else you give the ego too much power. You give that thought too much power. You give that voice too much power. And like I said before, once that voice starts planting seeds, self-sabotage, right? So we have to be aware of that, because a lot of times, anything that happens, anything, everything started as a thought, right? I mean, everything started as a thought, right? This mug started as a thought. This phone started as a thought. This incense started as a thought. Somebody had to think it to actually put a plan in action, or, you know, create a blueprint to be implemented to create these glasses, right? Like, somebody had to design this phone, or come up with the schematic for, whatever. It all starts as thoughts. Everything starts as thoughts. So even the things that are in our heads that we're thinking like, oh, well, we can't do this. We can't do this because if we do this, somebody's going to try to stop us from doing this. Be careful with that. Because what that is that you are allowing, or we, because I do it too, and as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself because I watch these videos because they're from me too, right? But we perceive an enemy. We perceive opposition. We allow that to enter our consciousness, and so that's what exists, the enemy, right? And opposition, right? But if we don't allow that into our consciousness, okay, be aware that there are people out here who are evil. Be aware that there are people out here who are conniving. Be aware that there are people out here who are scam artists, right? But if you don't vibrate on that frequency, if you don't even allow that thought to come into your consciousness, if you don't water it, if you don't give it any life, then it can't exist within your reality, right? So we have to be aware of what we're thinking about and what we're giving energy to. And if we're giving energy to an enemy, then yeah, the enemy will be able to attack us. But if you don't give it no energy, if you're vibrating so high, if you are on the frequency that enemy doesn't even dwell on or can't dwell in, then that enemy can't hurt you, right? It can't stop you, especially when you're working with purpose, when you're living in your purpose, when you are taking steps that are being divinely orchestrated, right? That you are inspired by spirit to do. We're not going to give the enemy no power over us, right? We're not going to let nobody stop us. So what we need to be saying is, nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. And if you stay all the way up, then no, nothing can stop you. But it's just those little teeny glimpses of doubt that we allow to enter our consciousness that then plant, right? And then because we're thinking about it, or because we're worried about it, or because we're giving it so much energy, because we're scared, then that thing starts to grow because we're feeding it, right? We're giving it energy. So where attention goes, energy grows. Don't give it no energy. And things kept coming up for me this week. And even with Seussical, right? Seussical is a Dr. Seuss musical that Chance is in. And so JoJo says his thinks get him in trouble. And I'm like, JoJo, yes, our thinks get us in trouble. What we're thinking is what gets us in trouble. Our thoughts are the beginning. Our thoughts are the seed. The seeds that we plant that sprout and grow and become things, right? Thoughts become things. So we got to be careful of what we're thinking. I'm not going to go too far. I'm so long-winded and I try to keep it short, but I can't. It's so much, it's so deep. But just remember that don't give it any energy. Our enemy is our inner me. It's usually our thoughts, and that's what creates the self-sabotage, because we could be high flying, positive, everything's going good, yeah, we're so happy, everything's great, and then one little inkling of a negative thought into your mind, and then you let that negative thought go and take you somewhere. And now you're thinking and you're like, oh, this is not going to work. Oh, this is not going to happen. You come up with all the millions of reasons why it won't happen, or why it can't happen, or why you shouldn't trust this person, or you shouldn't, think that this person is going to allow it. And now you've created your own mess, right? You've created the bullshit because of your thoughts. We have to be intentional and deliberate in how we think, because that's where it all begins. It begins with ourselves. We are creating our realities. We are the masters of our universe. We have the power. We also have the power to destroy ourselves. We also have the power to self-sabotage. We also have the power to think ourselves into bullshit. And it happens all the time. So we have to be aware of our thoughts and not let our thoughts take us somewhere we don't want to go. I think somebody needs to hear that today, and I think that's why I was inspired to write it. questions? Y'all have questions? What do you think? Feedback. Give me some feedback. Post it in the comments. Like it. Share it. Let's get it out there, because it's all up to you. It's all up to me. We are in control. We have the power. We just have to use the power now. Okay?